kick off, can you tell us the story behind Organic Mechanic, how the idea came about, how it started? So it was you and two others, right? You, Nick and Jace?
Yeah. First of all, kia ora everyone. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Natalie, for having us here. Thank you, the Mum's Garage crew. I'm here on behalf of the Organic Mechanic crew, which is a bunch of brothers. There's me, Jace, Nick, Raj, Alex, and then there's a whole extended tribe of us. And they're not here tonight because they're doing a kombucha workshop up the road. So shout out to the brothers.
Cool, nice.
But it started off with Jace and and I was working I studied graphic design. I was fresh out of university, and I was working for a conspiracy magazine called Uncensored. Has anyone heard of that? Yeah. So I was having a good time doing that, and Jace was in the real estate game working for Bailey's, I think just down the road here. And we met up in Albert Park one day, and I'd just been down the road at the hemp store, which was just on Victoria Street. Has anyone been there? Hemp store? Went up to the park to meet up with Jace, and we both had the same idea. We had come together to share what our thoughts on a project, and he said to me that he wanted to create a smoothie and juice truck which drove around and just played epic music and served healthy food to people, teaching people about health and well-being. And I was like, bro. That's exactly what I want to do. And so that was kind of how things started. And he had a bit of money that his parents had given him for finishing university to pay off his student loan. Anyone got any of those? So that was the initial investment. It was 20 grand that we had. And so after he left his job, I left my job, and we had 20 grand, and we went out and bought the best blender that we could find, which was a Blendtec at that point in time. That was 4 grand. And the rest of the money we spent on buying 3 big tables, a marquee, and a whole lot of chalkboards, and then a whole lot of organic produce. And we did a whole lot of experimenting with recipes for the smoothies, but then a couple of days before we started at the La Cigale French markets, we lost all the recipes. And so we ended up making them up the night before. And we turned up the next day with returnable jars. We wanted to change the way that people were drinking smoothies. Even though they were compostable, these cups weren't making their way to the compost. So we were doing returnable jars, using eco cleaners, which was about 4 years ago. This was kind of relatively new. Thank God everyone's caught up now. But yeah, we kind of turned up. We had 3 or 4 smoothies. One was the Hercules. That was a vegan protein shake, chocolate, pea protein, activated almonds, all that kind of thing. We had a green smoothie. It was called Athena, and we were playing off the Hercules and Athena. It was the divine masculine, feminine, and the ladies would all get the Athena, and the guys would all come down and be like, "Yeah, I have the Hercules." And so that was kind of how we started, and we had a wheatgrass machine. We were growing wheatgrass on the table, so we'd be cultivating our own wheatgrass, and then we'd juice it up, and that we'd offer that as kind of the fries with your burger, a wheatgrass shot and a smoothie. And most of our customers were hungover, so it was really easy to just kind of bring them into that kind of way of being, like have a smoothie and then have a wheatgrass shot. And they were kind of taking the shots like they were the other night. So yeah, that was our first day, and it was wildly successful. And we were just kind of blown away. And at the La Cigale markets, it was a Saturday and Sunday. So at the end of the day, we counted up the money, and we were just like, whoa, there's something here, something going on here. Especially because no one was really making smoothies at that point. Except Little Bird and Y Cicada. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning.
Nice. And that was 5 years ago when it first started?
4.5 years.
4.5, cool. And so then so now I guess well, now you do a number of things, but I guess is the main product kombucha. How did you evolve from smoothies to kombucha? What was that process?
Yeah, so
The story.
when we started, we didn't even know what kombucha was. So that was a really important part of our journey, was that what you start out with is not always what you're going to end up with. And it's going to constantly keep changing as you grow and as you move forward. But we started making kombucha because we started getting really interested in gut health. And a few of us had our own health issues, including myself. I got really stressed out, really emotional, from the backlash from eating white bread and noodles and double browns at university. Had started to catch up with me, and my gut bacteria was really bad. And I ended up getting something called leaky gut. Has anyone heard of that?
Yeah.
Yes.
But first of all, before I got diagnosed with that, I went to my doctor, my GP, and I'm just digressing a bit, but it'll make sense.
It doesn't matter if it doesn't.
Okay, cool. So I had massive cramps, and I was always really tired, chronically fatigued. Couldn't eat certain foods because they just inflamed my gut. And I went to see my trusted family doctor, and I waited in line for about half an hour in the waiting room, and then finally got into his little office, and he sat me down and he was like, "What's going on, mate?" And I told him, and he was like, "Well, I'll write you up this prescription." And he handed that to me, and he's like, "Go get this, mate, take that, the 10-day, take all the antibiotics, take them all, and you'll be good. And we'll give you these steroids as well, that will help. And you've got something called Irritable Bowel Syndrome, and you're going to just have to learn to live with that." And I was like, okay, and walked out and paid the $175 and just felt completely robbed. And I proceeded to research for myself what irritable bowel syndrome actually meant. And what I found was that it was just a blanket term used by health professionals that is not properly understood what is actually going on in the gut. And they just say, "Oh, that's irritable bowel." But in kind of the modern medicine situation at the moment, things like leaky gut aren't actually recognized. And what leaky gut is when your body, through chronic stress, crappy foods, environmental factors like toxins and all kinds of things, gets into your system, and your gut, which starts at your mouth and ends at the bottom there, as soon as you're putting food into your mouth, you're absorbing nutrients through your gut, which is all the way down. And what happens through all that stress and all of that stress from all of those crappy foods and everything that's going on, the lining of your gut starts to develop little microscopic holes. And in that way, when you start to eat food, it can't actually be digested, and it's leaked out into your bloodstream, and your body starts to create an autoimmune response, which is just not good. And you get things like chronic fatigue. You can't assimilate any nutrients. You're always bloating. There's pains going on, and that was the reason why we started getting into kombucha. Was because we discovered this problem, which wasn't big at that point because it wasn't really being recognized, but the feeling of bloating and all of those kind of things I just described, I can almost guarantee that there's a few people in the audience that are feeling this and don't really know what's going on. And looking deeper into that, you can find that it's probably something to do with leaky gut and something to do with the way that your gut is absorbing nutrients. Because Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, said that all disease begins in the gut. And that's as true as it was a couple of thousand years ago as it is today. And so that was why we got into kombucha. It was because it's a probiotic drink which has been brewed for thousands of years around the world, which helps to feed the healthy gut bacteria and helps to grow back that healthy microbiome that you use to digest your food. And we're more bacteria than we are human cells. We're like walking bags of bacteria. And if your bacteria is bad, your body starts to turn on itself. But if it's good, then you'll suffer from vitality. So yeah, kombucha that was how we got into kombucha, and we started selling it down at the markets in some flip top bottles. But first we were putting it in a smoothie. We wanted to make a smoothie with it, with lemon, ginger, and it was like an immunity tonic. But people were like, "Why are you pouring it in the bottle? Like, why are you pouring it in the blender? I just want to buy the bottle." So we were like, "Okay, put it on the bench. That's $20 for one of those." And it started just flying off the table. And we were like, "Man, there's something here." Because we weren't actually counting our money at that point, and we were just having fun. But it seemed like, yeah, Tim, he's laughing, he was there. That this was a new product that was in demand, and people needed to know about this. People needed to learn about their gut. We were selling it to them, but we also wanted to teach them how to make it for themselves, because it's not cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So then, I guess this ties into that. What's the deep-seated philosophy behind Organic Mechanic and everything that you do? Because you do a few things now, right? The kombucha is the main thing, but you do clothing and smoothies still, and parties, and a whole lot of awesome things. So what's the philosophy that drives you?
Yeah, the philosophy, it began as holistic well-being, right? So basically where we're at now with it, and our philosophy has evolved over time. Over the last 4.5 years, we've had all sorts of arguments and things with all of us, but where we're at now is looking at it as well-being is not one solution. There's no one solution to well-being. It's a holistic solution. And that includes the social well-being, which you can look at it as Te Whare Tapawha, which is the Māori health model. So on the bottom of the marae is the whānau well-being, the social well-being. That's all your relationships, that's your partner, your family, your friends, that's everything. It's the core. And that sits on top of Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother, the land, the whenua. So that's the base.
Do you want me to hold your mic?
I got it.
Okay, you got it? Nice. Those you got. You've done this before.
Yeah. On one side of the marae is the physical well-being, and that's everything that you put into your body, that you do with your body. And on the other side, I've turned it off. The other side is the mental and emotional well-being. So that's everything that you're thinking, everything that you're feeling, everything that's going through here. And then the one that's quite often most overlooked of them all is the roof of the marae, is the spiritual well-being. And that's your connection to both yourself and something that is higher than yourself. Something that is greater than you. Whatever you want to call that. Whether that's God or the universe, Krishna, Buddha, anything that you think. It's really important that we have that connection to that higher source. So the philosophy there is holistic well-being. And so where we're going with what we're doing is creating a globally connected community of holistic well-being.
Nice. Every time you stop, I don't want you to just keep speaking. Maybe I should just not ask questions. You just go. Any questions from the audience? Okay. I'm actually curious. So, personally, after you started drinking kombucha, what was the transition that you found yourself going through, like as you healed your gut or went through that process?
Yeah, so it's not easy to heal your gut. You've got to really commit to it. And I remember coming home and talking to the guys, and I was like, guys, like, I can't eat gluten. And they were like, what? And back then it was like really hard to find gluten-free stuff. And all the people who were gluten-free, they were just complaining as well. They were just like, nobody cares about us. There's nothing going on. And so I became one of those people who would go into a restaurant and pick everything apart with the waiter. I went on a diet called the Fodmap Diet. Has anyone heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's you're cutting out a lot of different foods. So you're really minimizing your sugar intake. You're not eating certain fruits. You're cutting out nightshades, which is things like tomatoes, potatoes, blueberries, because the proteins in those nightshades are really inflammatory for the gut. And I was eating pretty much the same meal every day. A really low sugar green smoothie in the morning, and some quinoa with some steamed kumara and pumpkin for lunch, and pretty much the same thing for dinner. And as much vegetables and leafy greens as I could get. And that lasted for about 6 months. And I was supplementing that with probiotic foods. That's a huge one. My favorite one of them all is the coconut yogurt. Raglan coconut yogurt, you guys seen that?
Yeah, so good.
Another really potent one is the coconut kefir. There's one out there called the Kefir company, and that's so potent, you just have a little shot of that in the morning and a shot at night. And I find that that's really probably one of the most beneficial ones that I'd found. And if you're feeling really bloated or there's pain going on there, the coconut yogurt is a really good way to you just have a couple of spoonfuls of that, and it'll get you feeling pretty smooth. And there's also sauerkraut. You guys heard of that?
Yeah.
Chucking that on your lunch, on your dinner, chuck it with every meal, because ancient cultures used to eat 13 or 14 servings of probiotic foods a day. And that was because they didn't have fridges. So they were preserving and fermenting all of their food. And today we're lucky if we get one. So many of us are walking around with guts which are just yearning for those probiotic bacteria.
Cool. I can relate because I guess part of the reason this is amazing for anyone. But so I also have an inflammatory condition called ankylosing spondylitis, which I got before I started Mum's Garage when I was working in a corporate job from stress, and so cut out a whole lot of foods and became really focused on health. And the clarity of thought that you get when you become conscious of what you put into your body, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have done Mum's Garage if it wasn't for like that whole transition of becoming really conscious around like what goes into your body. So it's really awesome to what you're creating and driving is like cool. Okay, so on the topic of starting a movement, the thing that you and your community are exceptional at is creating this culture or this way of existing that people become part of when they buy your product or come to your events. And even just when you and your crew came along to the last Entrepreneurs Unleashed, just the vibe that you brought with you really shifts a space. And so I'm really curious around how you create that culture, like that culture.
Yeah, the parties for sure. We had our first party in 2014, and that was just an absolute nightmare because we had alcohol there. And what we saw was people would come and they'd be fully conscious there with us. They'd be eating their carrots and hummus on the table, but they'd also be like drinking a bourbon or a beer or whatever they could find because that's how you do it. That's how you go to a party. You drink enough so that you feel comfortable, and some people drink too much. And there was just things going down which were just like absolutely ridiculous. And so after that party, we decided the next event that we do, we have to set an example for a new type of partying, which is alcohol-free. Alcohol is not the focus, because we saw that it was a huge focus in today's society, especially in Aotearoa. with all of our youth, binge drinking. I was, man, when I was studying in Wellington, it was just crazy what you get up to. So crazy. But I'm grateful. And the parties, the second party that we threw was totally alcohol free, and that was just like, wow, what are we tapping into here? Because we set the same space, more fairy lights, and we had the kombucha on tap. We just had that kegerator out there, which is its home is in our kitchen, and we just had the reusable cups. All those cups are reusable, by the way. Please don't chuck them in the bin. And people could just come and grab a cup of kombucha, or they could go and sit with the kava shaman, Nick, over in the corner, who was squeezing some kava and serving it in the traditional Fijian manner. Has anyone tried kava? Yeah. You get a bit of a buzz off kava, like a numbing of the mouth. It's really good for anxiety as well. If anyone's feeling anxiety, it's a great drink to have before you get up on stage or something like that. But yeah, we were just trying to create other options at these parties and have a whole lot of plant-based food there. There was no animals being slaughtered on nothing against, there's a lot to talk about there, but yeah, just setting a new example for the way that we partied, gathered a whole lot of people together. So each new party that we did, there was like 10 or 20 new tribe members that we met that became part of our friend group. And we've had 4 now. We had the last one that we had was in April, and we had about 200 people there. We did it up at Kawai Purapura up in Albany, and that was huge. And what we reflected on is that all the people that were there at that party, and even the people that were at the second party, none of them were at the first one. And so by just kind of setting what we wanted, we attracted those who also were on that same vibration, that frequency. And that's a huge part of how we've gathered our tribe, was just putting on these events and providing a space where people could come together and talk about the same kind of thing, talk about their leaky gut, and talk about the crazy gluten-free diets and their yoga classes and everything else that's involved with when you start stepping into a more holistic lifestyle. Talking about your compost, talking about you growing your kale, how your business is giving back to the community, all that kind of thing. But coming back to before the parties was our stall down at the markets. The first place we started back in 2013. We'd just turn up there every week, and it was like a miniature party for us. But we'd be making smoothies, and we'd be behind the thing. And we'd have our music on, and we'd just be there holding the space, and people would come down just to visit us and to be in that space with us. And so just kind of turning up and showing up and giving it our all every weekend was another way that on the micro level that we gathered that first kind of wave of tribe. And all of those people that were around in that first part, they're all such a deep part of what we do now. And everyone that works with Om is all we've met through events, gatherings, down at the shack. And it's grown into this great big family on so many different levels. And we all support each other because your whānau is the basis of your house, your marae. And what we have down there now at the markets is a shack, which is like just this wooden box that we renovated, and now it's like this cool little cafe. So that's there every weekend. It's a space where people can go and connect with other like-minded people. And most of us are down there every week because we just get free breakfast. But yeah, come down and visit if you guys are around looking for a community which might be of interest to you. We're down there.
You mentioned holding the space, and I know that that's literally partially what you do, but I guess also a big part of what a company does is well, successful ones create a space or a new way for people to operate. Can you add to that, I guess? Because maybe what you're doing is you're carving out a space or creating a space that people can become part of by coming along to what you do and buying your products. Do you have any more insight into like creating that space or carving that pathway? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's to carve that space and to hold that space, you just really need to be strong in your values and strong in your vision to where you're going. Some of our values down at the markets was we wanted to be as zero waste as possible, because it's ridiculous how we are all just using these single-use cups and it's all going back into the earth or into the sea, and we can't keep doing this, guys, you know. And so that was a huge value for us, was how can we help to change the way people think about single-use cups. Another one was we only use eco cleaners. We only use organic or spray-free produce. And there's been times where we've been like, man, there's no organic bananas in New Zealand. There's no spray-free bananas. And we could have got the conventionally grown ones, but because of our values, we didn't. And people, they were annoyed that there was no smoothies, but they also just like kia kaha, boys. You're staying strong to your values. And I think that is a huge part of holding that space, is just knowing your roots and knowing where you're going.
Yeah, cool. I've seen that and even experienced through Mum's Garage, like when you do, even right from the beginning, when you're small and other opportunities seem like they're a really good idea, you just do have to be so in tune with like knowing what that is that you're creating and sticking true to that, because even if you give a little, you're giving, that's kind of the beginning of giving. So I think that's, really good to hear. Any questions from the audience?
I'm just curious how you made that move from being just a smoothie truck to then kind of actually being this business and having a tangible product to then sell at supermarkets or Farrow Fresh, I think you guys are at. But yeah, how did you make that jump?
Yeah, we actually jumped and we fully missed and we crashed and burned. So it hasn't been like a smooth flowing ride. So we started with we never had a truck, by the way. We just had the marquee, and we were making the smoothies. And then we started making kombucha, and that came along. People started to buy that, and we identified that people were interested in that, so we started putting more energy into it. But during that time, we actually just I think we just spent too much time doing the really creative stuff and not really caring about the accounting. No one was looking at the books. No one was keeping track of any of that. We were all just kind of in that right brain. We were all in that creation mode, and a whole lot of opportunities were coming to us, but yeah, because none of us had a handle on the accounts, had a handle on the legal stuff, any of that kind of more logical things, our foundation cracked and crumbled, and through that our relationships were burnt. The team split apart. Some went overseas. I don't know if any of you know Nick Robson. He's a yoga teacher. He's now in Bali teaching at one of the most epic yoga studios in the world, and that was because we kind of fell apart. Everything fell apart. But over that time, when we started back up again, we were like, okay, we need an accountant, and we need someone who knows what they're doing in that area, and started to build it back up from the base with all of that in place. And identified the kombucha was a product that was booming overseas as well, and really honed in on that and created a label, scrolled through a whole lot of different bottles and all kinds of things. We actually asked our community what kind of bottle they'd want to see. So that the whole bottle that we have now is all based on voting from the community. And then we started to, because we were brewing it at home, which is totally illegal, once we started getting into stores, then we took the step of going to a production facility. And we managed to sort an agreement with them to use their facility when they weren't there, which was on the weekends and at night. So for quite a long time we were doing ridiculous hours of brewing, of boiling a whole lot of tea, mixing in the sugar, putting in these massive scobies into these barrels, and doing a whole lot of manual work like that. And then over time we gradually refined that process and scaled it up to the point where we're at now. Still need to scale even more, but when we started getting into places like Farrah's, our orders started to go like the size of the company doubled overnight, because they were ordering we were used to people ordering 1 or 2 boxes a week, and Farrah comes in and orders like 20 boxes for each store, and it was just like, whoa. And we've just started cracking into New World as well, and that's been just another level of, you really have to know how you're going to scale and how you're going to keep delivering once you do scale. Because if we mess it up with New World, that they order 20 boxes, 40 boxes, and then the next week we can't deliver because we've used up our whole stock, then it's just that we've had it happen. Stores are just like, you guys are just cowboys. We don't want to deal with you. So that process of coming from the market to the Farrah to the New World has been a crazy journey. But I think scaling and really refining the product had played a huge part. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. Good question.
I've needed it.
Oh, thank you.
Feedback on when you need it.
Awesome. Thanks. Getting on battery. Yeah.
Great. When you're talking about scale,
Hit the mute button on it. Turn it back on.
there?
Yep.
When you're talking about scale, what recommendations would you give to people who are going from something they know to something of the unknown?
Yeah. The first thing I say is the unknown is big. There's a lot of unknown out there, and don't let that stop you from taking the first step. And for us, that scaling, we were just like, okay, we're just going to brew this booch at home until we have to take the next step. And that step came because we started experiencing pain, and that pain of staying the same will only change when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. And so taking those small steps into the unknown, and also not being scared of it, and having a sense of confidence in what you're doing, and knowing what you're doing is going to be successful because you have everything that you need within you and behind you. So taking that first step towards the scale, definitely just take small steps. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Thanks,
More
Steve.
questions?
Hi, what's up? I'm so inspired right now.
Cool.
So inspired. This is amazing. I'm just so curious about where the name came from because I love the the spiritual connection to that. So I want to hear that story.
Yeah, cool. So when we were tossing up names at the start, we were pretty set on Green Machine. That was our name. And then Jason, Nick's older brother, his girlfriend at the time, who was in Melbourne, she was like, so you guys are doing organic juices? And we're like, yeah. And then Nick and Jace's dad, who was a huge part of why we're doing what we're doing as well, he was a mechanic. And so she was like, oh, you guys are like the organic mechanics. And at that point we had no idea about right? It was just organic mechanics, sweet. Like, we're gonna turn up and we're just gonna like fix people. And then some of our yogi friends would start to come down. I don't know if any of you guys know Abby Lee and Twyla. They'd come down and be like, oh, you guys, you know that O and N spells Om? And we were like, what? She was like, yeah, like Om. And I don't know how you guys are feeling right now, but do you guys feel like doing an Om? Yeah. So just take part if you want. It's quite nice to listen to if you don't feel like kind of taking part. But pretty much what we're going to do is take a couple of deep breaths. So maybe like 1 or 2 deep breaths. Really breathing into your belly. Really feeling the breath go into the belly. Okay, on this next out breath, we're just going to let out an Om. And however you want to do that, it's up to you. So here we go. Breathing in.
Do it again.
Yeah, so we do that before we have any meetings. It helps us all to get on the same page, vibration-wise, because if you keep doing them, you start to lose yourself in it, and you become not separate from the other person, not separate from all those other guys who are singing in different tones and all sorts of things, and it brings you onto the same level of vibration. And that's really important to what we do, especially with the Om. There's been a huge, it was a game changer when they were like Om, because it enabled us to really delve deep into the spirituality of it all. And they say the universe began with a word, and the word was Om. And that sound is the sound that the sun vibrates. So if you get up into space, you'll just hear that. And you probably think of Om. But there's a lot of resonance with that word. And if it stands out to you guys, and if you guys enjoyed that, I'd encourage you to just check it out, look it up. Hit a yoga class, one that starts with Om. Some teachers, they'll start, okay, we're going to start the class with a couple of Oms, and everyone gets on the same level, and then at the end of the class you do it again, and that's my favourite part, because I've been practicing a long time now and I just love it. But yeah, that's the story of Om.
That's so good. I'm so glad you shared that, because it's, I guess you've probably picked this up from Sharesies as well, but it's funny when you look from the outside and you look at a company, you think people, like, they must have some secret ability, like some special abilities that makes them so great to be able to start a company. But then you hear the actual stories behind things, and it's just sort of like, for example, where the name came from and those sort of things. It just kind of comes about and happens. And so I think that's kind of a big takeaway as well, is you just kind of have to move with what you're doing, and then it forms, which is cool to hear. I have a question actually. So I find with people that are like more social entrepreneurs, they often have trouble monetizing their product, so charging people for it. Have you experienced a similar well, I suppose you did at the beginning, but how do you have a philosophy around that, or any advice that you can give to people that might be in a similar situation and unsure about charging for what they do?
Yeah, for sure. The finance for us has always been a hard one to grasp, because we didn't set out to make money. We just set it out to change the game. And we learned along the way that money is a huge part of that. So the question was that how can you,
or how do you think about that? I guess like prioritizing making money as well as making an impact and balancing the two?
Yeah. So like it was really hard for us to grasp the concept of us getting paid to do what we were doing, because we felt like we didn't need to get paid. But really quickly, and especially after the crash that we had, we realized that making a profitable business is a huge part of making a lasting impact with what you're doing. And so the profit then started to sit on the same level as the people and the planet and the profit. And that's, for us, we're a triple bottom line company. We start with the people, the planet, and then profit. And all of those things are considered in everything that we do. But the lesson I learned from that is building a profitable business is key to that, because it enables you to keep doing what you're doing. And if you know your worth, it's okay to charge for that. To know the quality of your product, of our kombucha, we know what we put into that. And people might say, oh, it's just like tea. And it's in a bottle and you sell it for $14. And we're like, yeah, but like it's medicine. We know what this can do for you. And I think just knowing the value of what you do and knowing the value of yourself and what you bring to your team is huge too. Yeah.
Cool. Any final questions? Oh yes. Okay, I'm going to go this way.
Hi everyone. Graedon, thank you so much for your amazing speech. So much inspiration. And I have one question. You guys, there are lots of things behind kombucha, and you bring lots to people. They feel your love and the energy. And I feel like our society going through lots of transformations, and there are more consciousness business happening at this time. And what will be your tips for the businesses who are really concentrated, like mind-orientated or too creative, like they don't really think about the profit? How to achieve this balance? And because you're still successful and people love you, so it will be interesting to know your opinion on it. Thank you.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. It's a yeah, it really is a balance, because to be honest with you guys, we still are like grappling with money. We're still trying to figure out what the best way to do this is. And for us making a product like kombucha, we have our sales channels are retail stores and cafes. So they buy from us and we supply it to them. But it's not always that the store pays us on time. And other businesses might be really tight and they can't pay. And so that comes back to us, and we're like, we need to pay all these bills. So having this cash flow is such a huge thing, especially when you have a product business. And keeping that healthy is essential, because it's like the blood flow of the company. And it's not always easy. So taking an overdraft is a good start, because it gives you that space to really play. And if you're going below zero, it's like you can go to negative 30 and it's still okay, 30K. Yeah, it is a really tough balance to keep that money flowing through, and to keep your well-being intact, and to keep your friendships and your lifestyle intact. But yeah, it is a real priority. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but I have one more. But do you think that being a consciousness business is still make a huge difference? Because running a business is anyway stressful, but running it consciously can actually make a huge impact on people's health and the planet.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question? Sorry, Amanda?
So, do other businesses or people who's thinking to start the businesses to actually think about the other side, to be more consciousness, to engage the team to meditate, to be more aware about the feelings, because running a business is anyway stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think what you're touching on there is how do you keep that company culture conscious. So one example of that for us is that companies that work out together stay together. And so every Tuesday morning, this morning actually, we had a session with a guy named Power Surge. Has anyone heard of him?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's one of the most amazing trainers in the world, and he happened to work for us right back at the start. And we've watched him grow and learn from some of the best movement coaches around the world, like Irritable, all sorts of amazing teachers, and now he's pretty much creating his own form of movement training. And we train with him every Tuesday morning, 6:30 to 7:30 down in Victoria Park. And it's just $10, and he donates all of the proceeds to the animal shelter up in Matakana, because he's a fiercely plant-based athlete. He's a big Russian dude, but he just eats plants. He's a testament to how you can eat a plant-based vegan diet and still maintain that muscle and that strength and that power and that wisdom. So involving your company in things like that is a great way. It's almost like an insurance policy for them too. So they're looking after their health, and they're being involved in the business, and they're also meeting and connecting with people in a way which is really beneficial to the business. All of us sitting there in pain together, doing handstands until we all fail, or push-ups or pull-ups, or poking each other with a stick and trying to avoid the end of the stick, is great for the health of the business. And then things like having a yoga class that all of your company can go to, or a meditation class. We do a monthly potluck for our tribe, our community, where everyone just brings a plate of plant-based food over to our house, and we just enjoy that all together, and there's music, and it just has an amazing time and just leaves really inspired. And to be honest, I love that stuff more than the actual business. Is those events which are bringing people together, bringing together the tribe, because we have to stick together, and we have to hang with the people who we resonate with, because we're the generation that is going to create some massive change, especially with our business. It's more important than ever for us to have a conscious business, and for everyone within that business to feel like they are growing and empowered.
Nice. I guess the business allows you to exist in that way, in a way, right? It allows you to, I think that's one of the amazing things about creating or being part of something that you're creating for yourself, is you can create it however you want, and so it fits in with how you are as a collective group, which is really cool.
Yeah, one of the things we do when we get stressed is no one's allowed to get stressed, you're only allowed to go for a skate.
So you have to be able to skate to get a job, or be able to learn?
It's definitely going to put you ahead of the pack.
Cool. Okay, I think there was a couple more questions. We have to go really fast if that's okay, because we're running out of time, and I think we're really low battery on the mics. So who's next?
Yep.
Yeah.
Kia ora, Graedon.
Kia ora.
First, I want to honour you and your team for holding space for holistic wellness in Aotearoa.
Thank you, Sam.
So, you created smoothies, and then you created kombucha. As a visionary and a leader, what's next?
Oh,
Cool. Thank you.
So, what we're doing now is what we did last weekend with these two ladies here, Steph and Savannah, and there's Jace here is also involved, was we planted a hemp farm. Has anyone heard about hemp?
Yeah.
So hemp is one of the most amazing seeds on the planet, which has over 25,000 different uses across 17 different industries, and for some reason it's illegal. And those reasons that it's illegal is because of corporate interests of the oil, plastic, paper, fibre industries. They just didn't want hemp to destroy their profits. And that's from the laws that were changed in 1937 in the States. That's kind of the reason why cannabis is illegal as a whole, was because of the industrial uses of hemp. But coming back to what we were doing, planting this hemp farm, is really what we're doing now is starting to tap into the land of Aotearoa, to start to take back the land and to heal the land. Because if we listen, our land is sick, our rivers are poisoned, our trees are dying. They just, I don't know if any of you heard in the Waitakiris, but the Waitakiri tracks are closed now because of the kauri are dying. There's a disease called the kauri dieback. Yeah, I'm a tree hugger. Which is spread by people carrying bacteria on their feet through the bush, and it really targets the kauri. And then there's also another one called myrtle rust, which affects some of our most amazing trees, like the Pōhutukawa is at risk from this rust, which has come from South America all the way over to here. But what we're doing now is really switching into conservation mode. We really need to make some massive changes here in Aotearoa. And we can lead the world with sustainable, regenerative industry. And we see hemp as a huge component to that. So the Kai Ora Hemp movement, the project that we're doing down in Rotorua is a start towards that future, towards healing the land, and at the same time healing the people, healing the families, bringing together the communities, teaching people how to make good kai, because you can eat hemp. It's one of the most nutritious seeds on the planet. You could eat just hemp for the rest of your life and you'd survive, because it has all essential amino acids you need. You need to drink some water too. Yeah, a bit of booch, some probiotics. But yeah, what we're doing now is really working towards taking back the land and to generate our own space where we can provide an example of what it means to truly live sustainably and regeneratively with the land, and to have a business which is driving that change. Kia ora.
Nice. So one more question over there, the lucky last. Someone put their hand up before. Oh, okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That was amazing. So thanks to both you and our other two speakers, Brooke and Sonia. It was like the knowledge that you've shared with the group is just incredibly inspiring, both of you. And it's cool that you've taken your time, like the time out of your, I know that you've both, like all three of you, got a lot going on. So thank you from me and everyone here, and a huge big round of applause. Okay, so we'll be here for a while yet, so we'll put some music on, and I think there's probably still some more kombucha, so stick around and meet some people, and yeah, thank you all for coming. Cool.